take a moment and just breathe. Now, I want you to ask yourself a simple question. What if your life could change not gradually, but right now? Science tells us that the moment you begin to envision a new future, the brain doesn't know the difference between the experience you're creating in your mind and what's actually happening in your physical world. Your thoughts begin to rewire your brain. Your emotions start to shift your body. In other words, you're no longer living by the memories of the past, but by the vision of your future. Today, I want to invite you to step into that field of infinite possibilities, to leave behind the familiar, to break free from the predictable patterns that have kept you stuck. Because when you change your thoughts, you change your feelings. When you change your feelings, you change your energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. This is not philosophy. This is biology. This is neuroscience. This is transformation. So today, I ask you, are you ready to create a new path?
Everything in your life begins with a single thought. The reality you are experiencing right now is not merely a result of your external circumstances. It is a direct reflection of the thoughts you have been repeatedly thinking. Every time you have a thought, you make a chemical, and those chemicals influence how you feel. Those feelings, in turn, drive the same thoughts. It becomes a cycle, a familiar loop where you think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and live the same experiences. Most people wake up in the morning, remember who they are, think about their problems, and those very thoughts signal the same circuits in the brain, causing them to feel exactly the same way they did yesterday. Without realizing it, they are thinking in the past, feeling in the past, and therefore living in the past. When you understand that your thoughts are not simply passing ideas, but the blueprint of your personal reality, you gain an incredible power. Every thought you fire in your brain wires a circuit. The more you repeat a thought, the stronger that circuit becomes. This is the foundation of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself based on what you consistently think about. If your thoughts are always focused on fear, doubt, lack, or limitation, your brain becomes conditioned to automatically produce those same emotional states, locking you into a predictable future. But what happens when you start to think differently? When you intentionally think elevated thoughts, thoughts of gratitude, possibility, abundance, and love, you begin to create new neurological pathways in your brain. You literally start to reprogram your mind. The brain doesn't distinguish between the actual experience of an event and the vivid, focused thought of it. This means you can mentally rehearse a new future, and your body will begin to respond as if it is happening now. Most people try to change their life by changing the outside world, but true change always begins within. The quantum field responds not to what we want, but to who we are being. The moment you begin to think new thoughts, you begin to shift your energy. When your thoughts are aligned with your desired future and you feel those emotions now, you collapse time between where you are and where you want to be. Your thoughts are the signal you send out, and your feelings are what draw the experience back to you.
Most people live their lives unconsciously trapped in a cycle of habitual thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. They wake up each morning and immediately begin to recall the past. They think about their problems, their responsibilities, their failures, and their routines. Those thoughts lead to familiar emotions, stress, anxiety, frustration, or even sadness. Those emotions then reinforce the same thoughts, creating a feedback loop that keeps them stuck in the same mental and emotional state. Without realizing it, they're living by the same old story, reliving the same day over and over again. They're not creating anything new because their mind and body are addicted to the past.
In order to create a new life, it is essential to break this cycle and interrupt the habitual programming. You must stop identifying with the old self that is defined by memories of past experiences. The old self is a predictable set of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, all rooted in your past. If you continue to think, feel, and act in the same ways, you will inevitably create the same future. Real change requires becoming aware of these automatic patterns and making a conscious decision to break them. It all begins with awareness. When you can observe your thoughts and emotional reactions without becoming them, you begin to separate from the old self. The moment you notice that you are thinking in the same limiting ways or reacting to life in the same old patterns, you create space for change. That space is the gateway to transformation. It allows you to make new choices, to think differently, and to feel differently. In that moment of awareness, you reclaim your power from your past. Breaking the habit of being your old self isn't about force or struggle. It's about becoming mindful of the present moment and deciding to no longer allow your past programming to dictate your future. When you stop firing the same neural pathways in your brain and stop feeling the same familiar emotions tied to those thoughts, your body begins to recalibrate. You begin to step out of the known and into the unknown. This is where change begins. The unknown can feel uncomfortable at first because it's unfamiliar, but it's also where all possibilities exist. The process of change isn't about fixing yourself, but about becoming someone new. Someone who is no longer defined by the stories of their past, but by the vision of their future.
If you want to create lasting change in your life, it is not enough to simply think about your desired future. You must begin to emotionally embody it right now. The way you feel on a daily basis sends a powerful signal into the field around you. Your feelings act as a magnetic force, drawing experiences back to you that match your emotional state. Most people unknowingly live in survival emotions: fear, worry, frustration, guilt, or unworthiness. These emotions are tied to past memories and conditions, and as long as you keep feeling them, you keep creating from the same past reality. The key to change is to begin feeling elevated emotions before the actual experience shows up. Your body doesn't know the difference between an experience that is happening in the external world and one you are vividly imagining in your mind. When you begin to feel emotions like gratitude, joy, freedom, inspiration, and love without any external reason, you start to change your internal state in a powerful way. Those feelings begin to tell your body that your future has already arrived. This process is not about wishful thinking. It is about aligning your internal environment with the outcome you desire so deeply that you begin to live as if it is already true. When you practice sustaining these elevated emotions every day, you begin to shift your energy and broadcast a new electromagnetic signature. This signature influences your personal reality because it signals to the quantum field that you are already experiencing the desired future. In doing so, you become a magnet for new opportunities, people, and situations that match your state of being. This requires consistency and dedication. It means starting your day not by reacting to the same old problems, but by intentionally creating the emotional state of your future. Gratitude is one of the most powerful elevated emotions because it signals completion. When you feel grateful, your body believes you have already received what you desire, and that emotional signature begins to attract similar events to you. You are literally teaching your body to feel emotions ahead of the experience. Over time, this practice rewires your brain and conditions your body to a new state of being. This is the essence of creating from the inside out, generating the feeling first and allowing the external reality to align with the inner change.
Change does not happen by accident. It happens by intention and repetition. Every time you think a thought, you are creating a connection in your brain. The more you repeat that thought, the stronger the connection becomes, eventually forming a neural pathway that influences your habits, behaviors, and personality. Most people unknowingly wire their brains for limitation by thinking the same negative thoughts over and over again. They continuously rehearse their worries, doubts, and insecurities, reinforcing the same circuits in their brain. This creates a predictable and familiar reality where nothing changes because the mind and body are locked in the same patterns. The process of personal transformation begins with becoming deliberate about your thoughts. It means consciously choosing thoughts that are aligned with the future you want to create. When you consistently focus on a clear intention, you start to rewire your brain to match that future reality. This is not about forcing yourself to think positive for a few minutes and then returning to old patterns. True change requires daily commitment and repetition. It means taking the time every day to mentally rehearse the person you want to become and the life you wish to live. The brain does not know the difference between a real experience and one that is vividly imagined with focused attention. When you mentally rehearse your future with clarity and emotional intensity, your brain begins to fire in new sequences, creating new neural networks. Over time, those networks become hardwired, and your brain begins to automatically think in ways that support your desired reality. This process also changes the body. When the brain sends signals of new possibilities, the body begins to respond as if the experience has already happened. You start to feel differently, act differently, and attract different outcomes. Repetition is the key that locks in these changes. Just as a skill or habit becomes automatic through practice, your new way of thinking and feeling becomes your new normal through consistent repetition. It is not enough to do this once in a while. It requires daily focus and intention. You are literally reconditioning your body to a new mind, teaching it to stay aligned with your future vision instead of falling back into old habits. This is the science of change, using the power of focused thought and repetition to create lasting transformation in your brain, your body, and ultimately, your life.
The greatest changes in life happen when you are willing to step into the unknown. Most people remain stuck in their current circumstances because they cling to the familiar, even if it no longer serves them. The known feels safe and predictable, but it also keeps you repeating the same cycles of thoughts, emotions, and actions. The unknown, however, is the space where all possibilities exist. It is the realm beyond what you can predict, beyond the past experiences, and beyond your current identity. The moment you step into the unknown, you open yourself to new opportunities and new outcomes that you could never anticipate from your current level of thinking. It can be uncomfortable to leave behind the familiar because the body and mind are addicted to certainty. The brain is wired to predict outcomes based on what it has already experienced. It constantly tries to maintain a sense of safety by keeping you within familiar patterns. But if you continue to act within the limits of what you already know, you will never create anything new. True transformation happens when you are willing to venture into uncertainty without needing to know how everything will unfold. Stepping into the unknown requires trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your vision, and trust in the unseen forces that are always working around you. It means letting go of control and surrendering the need for immediate answers. Instead of analyzing every detail or waiting for perfect conditions, you act in alignment with the person you are becoming, even when you cannot see the entire path ahead. In this state, you are no longer trying to create from the predictable past, but from a place of possibility. Every time you face the unknown and choose to stay present, you rewire your brain and teach your body that uncertainty is not something to fear, but something to embrace. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to live beyond your comfort zone. You begin to develop a deep inner knowing that your future lies in the unknown, and the more you surrender to it, the more life begins to surprise you in ways you never imagined. This is how spontaneous opportunities,
synchronicities, and unexpected breakthroughs occur. They do not come from trying to force change through control. They arise naturally when you let go of the familiar and become willing to explore new possibilities.